Hello, ladies and gents of YouTube. Rich from PCGamesN here, and I'm joined by Ben.
Hello.
And we've just seen the Bethesda showcase, haven't we?
We have.
Yeah. So we're going to give a quick take. Immediately, the thing that stood out, well, the big news is Wolfenstein 2, the new Colossus. Exciting to see that. I've been a Wolfenstein fan. Like, Wolfenstein was the first game, one of the first games that I ever played, the original 3D, the Wolfenstein 3D. So yeah, it looked in keeping with the new order, sort of a continuation of that, going into the sort of 50s and 60s, the alternate reality.
Drugs.
Yeah,
Way more drugs this time, and also an odd sort of Fallout aesthetic going on.
Yeah,
the 50s cafe or diner thing, and then almost some vault doors. I honestly thought it was a crossover for a while.
Yeah.
Until we got to the end.
So that's a little bit odd, but I'm liking seeing BJ back and being a more interesting character.
Yeah, it was actually really funny. Some really good lines in there. And
Yeah.
he seems like a more developed character. He was pretty good in the last game, but even better this time.
Yeah, so that's good, but it's also one of the only significant announcements of the entire thing that I felt. I was interested to see sort of what turned out to be the evil within, like the sort of weird sort of waxwork figures emerging from that white substance or whatever it was, and I thought, ooh, this is interesting. Is this something new? Is this a surprise? It looked almost a bit Westworldy, and then it turned out to be the evil within.
Yes, and it looked a lot like the evil within after that point.
Yes, it did. And I personally lost a little bit of interest in, because I'm not so much interested in horror games. But what did you think?
Oh, I like horror games.
Yeah.
However, I haven't played the first Evil Within though, which is probably not a good starting point for this. But yeah, it looks pretty good. I thought we'll see.
Yeah. Well,
there wasn't much on show, was there? As was the case with most of that showcase. Lots of very small snippets of things and not a lot of detail.
So yeah, in terms of actual big game announcements, Wolfenstein 2 and The Evil Within 2 were pretty much the only really significant new ones that we heard. There was a lot of smaller stuff, a lot of expansion-y stuff, a lot of bitty, moddy, extra content stuff. One interesting one was the Creation Club, which looks like a way for Bethesda to sort of pull together all of the modding and extra content stuff that they've been doing, that they've been benefiting from in many of their games, including and especially Skyrim.
Make it easier for players to get it. Well, I suppose people who are modding probably don't have too much trouble getting hold of that kind of stuff anyway, but this will be a nice way to just have it all in one place and pull it into different games. It looks really simple, the UI. Maybe there'll be a way to profit from it if you're making that stuff, but yeah, who knows, we'll see.
I have an interesting, mixed view on this, because even though it's great value for us as players to have modders make a bunch of free content for games that have been released, it also benefits Bethesda massively to sort of extend the lifespan of these games. And Skyrim on PC, as we all know, has done great for them out of this. And even though modders are clearly happy to do it, and in some cases they do benefit, because the guy that made Falscar, I'm pretty sure landed a job at Bungie as a result of that. It would be nice to see a vehicle of some kind for modders to make some money and to be rewarded for their efforts, because after all, it is their time and their hard work that they're putting in. There was that controversy of paid mods on Steam that was killed. Maybe Creation Club will include a fee of some kind. As you say, it's not yet clear, but I feel like that'd be worthwhile for modders if they wanted to benefit from that. One of the only other things that caught my eye personally was the Dishonored 2 DLC that was just announced, Death of the Outsider. I love Dishonored 2, really big fan, thought it was great, so it's good to see some details on the DLC, and especially, with this premise, this is a interesting premise, because the Outsider is this all-powerful figure in the Dishonored universe, and how we're going to kill him, and that's a really interesting question to start thinking about.
Is anyone going to succeed?
Yeah. And the sort of motivation was hinted at. Is the assassin Dowd makes a reappearance, and he was a really cool character in the first
really
one.
Exciting, yeah.
And he seems to have developed a grudge against the Outsider, to blaming him for all of these problems, which is not unreasonable, I guess. So that'll be cool to see.
And then we saw some VR stuff. So we had Fallout 4 VR, which incredibly looked a little more shonky than standard Fallout. And there was Doom VFR.
VFR, yeah, and we can all, in a Doom context, we can all sort of guess what the F there would stand for. And that's more or less, there's the other news as well. I mean, we saw Quake Champions, but we've seen Quake Champions before. We didn't see it mentioned in any new significant way.
There was a hoverboard.
Yeah, that looked pretty cool.
Yeah.
And Morrowind is now past, no, not Morrowind, The Elder Scrolls Online is now past 10 million players, which struck me as a little bit of a surprise. I didn't realise it was quite that popular. But there was mention of the new Morrowind expansion, which again, we've also seen, and that's more or less everything. It was all couched in this really weird, very sort of twee, very sort of family-friendly, sort of happy theme park sort of graphics, which I thought was a little bit odd and didn't really sort of jarred a little bit with the content of all of it. But
I quite liked it.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose the stabbing someone repeatedly in the genitals set against a cartoon could be odd. But
nasty, creepy horror video game that was announced in the middle of it all. But whatever, you do you, Bethesda. So yeah, an interesting conference, interesting showcase. But I'm definitely excited for Wolfenstein 2 and for Dishonored 2 DLC. Looking forward to both of those. Interesting to see how the Creation Club develops. And that's my take, our take.
Over and out.
Over and out.